Let's see. So yeah, let's talk about this year. How many is it? Is this your? You said is this your 26th year?
It is my 26th year. I've been a Santa for more than 25. This is the 26th year. And it's a busy season for me right now. I've had two Santa gigs under my belt, and I have 20 more to go.
22 gigs this season.
Yes,
Is that heavy or light or normal?
it's normal. Normal for me anyway.
Yeah. What's kind of the range of the different kinds of gigs that you're doing?
Well, I do both philanthropic. In other words, I just did Toys for Tots, for example. I'll
Mhm.
do Shop with the Hero in town. I'll do some a charitable Kiwanis. Kawasi Kiwanis gives every child in a underprivileged school, first grade, a present from Santa. So I'll do a number of those things, and then I have some paying gigs. I, I I think I mentioned to you privately that the Santa to be a good Santa, you have to invest in time and equipment and training, and that is expensive. And so
Mhm.
I do charge for some corporate Christmas parties, some country club appearances, um, Santa parades, and tree lighting ceremonies. I'll ask for a donation for those if they're a community, um, just to offset some of the large expenses of being a really good Santa.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that, in 25 plus years, you probably have some that are recurring that you do every year, and you
Yes.
probably have a few that are, maybe you've only done once. What are, do you have any that you, do you have any recurring ones that you really look forward to, especially?
Um, there's a school in Midland County where 75% of the children are under the poverty line. And I really enjoy going to that school. Um, the children are so appreciative and so grateful. They, when I give the Kawasi Kiwanis chapter in town, everybody contributes a gift, and every first grader gets a present. It's a clothing item that their parents pick out, and most of the time it's a shirt or a sweater or a pair of pajamas, nothing outrageous. It's $30 or less, basically. And when I give the child, they're all called up, and you know, I give them a present, and I'll say, Santa loves you. And I get a hug, and the child goes back to their table. And I've later learned from some of the teachers that that's probably the only time somebody said, I love you to that child that week or maybe that month. And it tends to bring you to tears knowing that.
Hmm. Wow. And of the gigs that are not recurring, the ones that just sort of pop up on the calendar one year, are there any in that group that have been particularly surprising for you in any way?
Not surprising. I'll get a house party every now and then, and but frequently the host of the hostess said, Christ is the reason for the season, and could Santa please emphasize that? And then I tell them about the story of Saint Nicholas and how he was a bishop in what's now Turkey,
Right.
and children back then, young girls, if they were to be married, had to have a dowry. If they couldn't be married, they were often sold off to slavery.
Hmm.
And he, trying to protect these young girls, would go secretly through the night and throw some coins in the window of the house. And back then, most people only had one pair of socks. They would hang it by the chimney in order for them to dry, and some of these coins would fall into the stockings.
Mm,
And that is the origin of today's high, have your stocking by the chimney with care.
hmm. Yeah. It's also the origin story of the symbol for pawn shops, the three gold balls. It also comes from the
Ah,
story of St. Nicholas.
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I learned that from Paul Harvey. Do you remember Paul Harvey?
I do.
Yeah, not too many people remember Paul Harvey. Um, so busy season for you. I can't believe you're taking the time to talk to me. 22 gigs. That's got to be, and I mean, it's a very compressed time frame, right? I mean, you don't
It
start till
is.
Thanksgiving.
It is. Say, for example, Saturday I have a country club from 10:30 to 3:30, and then I have to drive an hour north to Gladwin to be the Santa in their Santa parade and tree lighting, and then a visit with Santa afterwards. I won't get back from that gig until 11:30 at night.
Hmm. Wow. And this is all in and around Midland, Michigan.
Right, within an
Mhm.
hour's drive of Midland.
Yeah. Yeah. Remind me when we get to talking about the equipment. I have a question about that because I'm thinking, you're doing sometimes 2 gigs a day. You may have days where you do 3 gigs.
Yes,
A lot of those gigs, you've got kids on your lap. Kids are notoriously icky, right? They've got sticky
yes.
fingers and runny noses and, juice boxes and whatnot. And just given the amount of money that you had to spend on your gear, I wonder, how do you make sure that you leave a gig in presentable shape when you got to drive across town and do another one?
Well, there's a lot of little tricks. Some cloths that you have, they're especially treated, and you try and. I normally will have an elf that will help me.
Mm,
Either at the private gig, it might be a parent that's pre-assigned to be Santa's little helper, and they will call out names of children because there might be three Michaels in the room,
hmm.
and so they'll say Michael C, and that child will then come up. But they'll also be there to settle fights because every now and there's a little argument among the kids, and Santa's not a disciplinarian,
Right.
and so I always ask for an elf to take care of that to make sure that gets settled without any involvement with Santa. Santa doesn't discipline children. Santa loves children, and and also take care of some sticky hands.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge is their little petri dishes,
Hmm.
and I'll see thousands of children during the month of December, and just saying healthy is a major challenge.
Wow, I bet. I bet. Yeah, I don't think there's enough Purell in the world.
Well,
Uh,
I think like school teachers, you build up an immunity because you're so exposed.
yeah. Yeah. Right. Um, well, let's talk just a little bit about how without going into all the detail of what the school entails, just talk a little bit about the path that led you to this line of work.
When I got back from Vietnam, I started working for Dow Corning Corporation in Midland, and one of my acquaintances said, we have a Santa house, and they always look for volunteers to be elves to help direct traffic and open and close doors and things like that. So my wife and I volunteered to do that. And when I was down there, the chief Santa of them all, Tom Valent, said, Fred, you'd make a great Santa. And with that encouragement, I went off to the Santa school and got properly trained and then invested in the equipment.
Why do you think he said that? What was it about you that made him?
I think the way I relate to children and that it's a wholesome, enriching, heartwarming experience. And I think I think that's the thing that attracted him.
Hmm. Yeah. So are you from Michigan originally? Did you grow up there?
No, I'm from New York City.
New York City. So you grew up in New York City?
I grew up in New York City,
Okay.
in Douglaston, Queens,
Queens, yeah.
and then I was born in Brooklyn and raised in Queens. And then when I was 16, I went off to college at Providence College in Rhode Island.
Was that, I'm assuming, I mean, today that would be considered unusual, I think, for a 16-year-old to go to college. What was it?
It was. I keep telling people that my mother said I was brilliant and was pushed ahead. And I keep saying I was a pain in the neck and the teachers pushed me ahead so they can get rid of me.
Right.
But I skipped
Yeah.
two
Well, it's
grades.
probably two sides of the same coin, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you went to college at 16. And I know you weren't drafted. You said that you spent some time in ROTC in college.
I did. I went through our RTC program, and when I graduated as a second lieutenant, I was first assigned to Hawaii, and I was there for 2 years. And that was a weird Santa experience because you're in shorts and t-shirts on the beach and
Hmm.
Christmas Day. And
Hmm.
that was just very weird.
I'm curious about why a 16-year-old would want to be in ROTC.
If you failed the class and you didn't get to go on to sophomore year, you were going to be drafted. 100% of the people my age were all drafted. And I decided that I'd rather go in as an officer than an enlisted person. And
So your mom was right. You were brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
nothing against the enlisted people,
No,
but
no, I
the
understand.
pay is
Yeah,
better as an officer.
sure, sure. But you ended up being an aviator.
Well, I was an aircraft commander. I was not a pilot.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay.
My first day there, we were assigned two helicopters to our unit, and I went up with the pilot, and he says, "Guess how many pilots we have?" And I said, "One." He said, "If I get wounded, we become a rock. You're going to learn to fly this thing." And so over the course of the year, I actually learned how to fly a helicopter.
Wow.
Enough to get it down safely.
So an aircraft commander, I'm trying to figure out I, I don't know that I've heard that term before. Is that like a similar role to like the crew chief?
No, it's the person that directs the aircraft to where they're going and assigns special roles to the aircraft.
Okay.
Um, the you're kind of at that point the VIP and the pilot's your chauffeur. If that is a very crude analysis.
Mm. Yeah, the pilots, I think, at least in the Army, were very often, or maybe most often, not officers, right? They were warrant
Well, they
officers.
no, they were all officers. They were warrant officers.
Okay.
A CWO, chief warrant officer or warrant officer. They were all officers, but the aircraft commander was in charge of the aircraft loosely. This is where we should go today, and this is our mission today.
Okay.
The pilot is in charge of the aircraft. No mistakes about it. He is the only one that can maintain that aircraft and make sure it's going in the right direction.
All right.
And
This is
I
yeah.
flew in Loaches, LOH-6s, light observation helicopters. So there were only two of us in the helicopter.
Hmm. Hmm. I get it. So you're running the mission. He's running the machine.
And he's really in charge of everything. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now you must have been, I mean, given how young you were when you went to college, you must have been a fairly young second lieutenant.
I was. I think I was probably 20, 21. Well, I was 20 in Hawaii as a second lieutenant. I was offered an RA commission, but I was too young to accept it. You had to be 21 to accept it. So I was a 20-year-old second lieutenant and a 22-year-old captain.
Wow. So you were captain by 22.
Right.
What what year was it? What month and year did you arrive in Vietnam?
March of 68, and I was there for a year until 69. So I was there just at the tail end of Tet 1, and I was there for the whole Tet 2 experience.
Mm, hmm. And what unit were you with?
I was with the 615th Combat Military Police Company. We had 22 gun jeeps and two helicopters, and our job was to run the roads from Long Binh, Bien Hoa, Tay Ninh, and Saigon, and basically get ambushed If we got ambushed, then we'd shut the roads down to convoys.
Mm.
We also did normal police stuff. If trucks got into an accident, we would respond to that, or you know, something like that. But we were trolling for bullets a lot of the time.
It's a bit like finding out whether a stovetop is hot by putting your hand on it.
Yeah, yeah. When I first got there, the commanding general said, Fred, I'm going to give you a combat military police company. And I said, there's a word in that phrase that does not belong, and it's combat. I expected to be handling some POWs and some hookers, but
Mm.
and then he said, "You're going to run the roads, and your job's to get ambushed." Oops, another word that isn't in. Should you be overrun? Oops, another word. The first air capture backup. So it was a learning experience.
And what do you remember about arriving in Vietnam? Did you know what your job was going to be when you got there?
No, no, I didn't. The first day I was there, I was at Long Binh, and as we arrived, we got mortared, and I ran to a bunker with another newbie who came on the bus with me, and from Saigon International Airport, and we both ran into this bunker. And after the battle, the barrage stopped. He was slumped over a sandbag, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he didn't answer, and I grabbed his shoulder, and he didn't have a head. And that was my first day in Vietnam.
Mm. So at some point, I'm assuming within the first few days, you did get an indication of where you'd be going and what you'd be doing.
Yes, yeah, I got assigned to the 615th, and I was there for 6 months, and then was made deputy provost marshal for Benoit. That's kind of like assistant police chief for this region,
Hmm.
and that was a rewarding experience. I flew every day in that role.
What sort of special training, if any, does an aircraft commander need to do that job?
As soon as I got in, I was taught how to fly, and that was I wish I knew before I got in. But that was just your assigned role, and you're basically trying to detect where we need to be today to oversee the convoy or oversee the section of road that might be dangerous.
But you didn't have
Um,
to learn any. Sorry, I'm just trying to get because you said that this pilot told you he was going to teach you how to fly the aircraft. But prior to that, I'm wondering what aviation specific, did you have any
I
aviation
didn't have a
specific?
thing.
Nothing.
Didn't have a single 10 minutes of training.
Okay. All of your training was law enforcement.
It was law enforcement in Hawaii, in law enforcement in Vietnam,
Hmm.
and then I didn't do much law enforcement at all in Vietnam.
Gotcha. So once you started flying, how did you like it?
Oh, I loved it. I flew with some really great aviators, and I managed to get shot down twice. One was very minor. We just got to brush it off and flew again. And the second one was really a bad one. I was shot down in a North Vietnamese regimental base camp, and 1,400 people spent the next 2 days trying to kill me, and that ruined my whole day.
You were shot down in an NVA base camp?
Yeah, it was a base camp they'd set up near Long Binh, Benoit for Tech 2, and there were 1,400 bad guys that we stumbled across,
And they
and,
shot you down.
and they shot me down.
How many of you were in the aircraft?
There were two of us.
Did you both survive?
We did when we were shot down. The helicopter landed on its side. My pilot was virtually underwater in this drainage ditch to this rice paddy. I was in the right seat, and I jumped out, jumped in the water. He came up, and then machine gun bullets ripped in between the two of us. And we decided we had to split up in order for one of us to survive. So he went one way and I went the other, unbeknownst to either one of us. He went away from their camp, and I went deeper into their camp.
Oh.
When I was a kid, I could swim 3 laps of a pool underwater, and and that day I swam about 50 feet. My heart was beating, my adrenaline was flowing, my I had my weapon with me and my boots on. I got rid of my flight helmet, but and I got about 50 feet away, and I put my nose under a big leaf, and I grabbed some air, and I went down, and I did that for many hours. And
Many hours.
yes, they knew I was there. So the first thing they did was they machine gunned the ditch. Then they threw hand grenades in about every 10 feet, and that ruined my hearing pretty badly. And then they bayoneted the ditch, and a bayonet came in over my right shoulder. A bayonet came in at my face, and I'm thinking, will he see the blood? Will he feel the thunk? Will I scream? And just then, somebody called him. And when he turned around, he missed his place and put the bayonet in over my left shoulder. That was one of 26 times I should have been killed over the next 2 days.
You counted the number of times you should have been killed.
I had the time to do that, yeah, because I was playing hide and seek and underwater. A coral snake came that far from my face. Now, a coral snake, if it bites you, you got 45 seconds to say the 4-letter word of your choice, and then you die. But we kind of came to an agreement that if he didn't bite me, I wouldn't bite him.
Hmm.
Later that night, he kept inching away from the crash site, and I leaned up against the wall of this drainage ditch, and I put my arm right through a hidden bunker. And the guys in the bunker were out looking for me.
Oh,
The next day, later the next day, my pilot had a little mini flare with him, and he popped the flare when rescue helicopters came by. And they got him out, and he said, "Let's get out of here. Fred's dead." And everybody left but one pilot, a friend of mine, Terry Turley. He wanted to bring back a body, leave no man behind. And so I knew that he couldn't stay up very long because everybody's shooting at him. So I ran into, right in the middle of the rice paddy. I started waving, and he didn't see me. So I did something really stupid. I fired my weapon out of desperation. Hey, I'm down here. And his, you know, he didn't hear that, but all the bad guys did. And they surrounded the rice paddy in hopes of getting another helicopter. And they were about to shoot at me from the helicopter when I was covered in mud. I'd camouflaged myself and I was all muddy and dirty. And so I looked like black pajamas from the air shooting. And and then Terry recognized my red hair. And he said, Viet Cong don't have red hair. That's Fred. And then he did something that saved both our lives. Rather than landing like a normal helicopter lands, he went out, went low and fast over the treetops, came by me, flared. I dove in his back door as he went by. And he got a number of bullet holes in a wounded aircraft commander. And he got me out.
oh my goodness. I imagine that he received some sort of recognition for that kind of rescue.
I don't know for sure, but I think it was a Silver Star.
Mm, and is was that the incident that got you a Purple Heart?
Yes, when I was cut up in the crash.
Mm, hmm. So for 2 days, you're running around inside an NVA.
I wasn't doing any running. I was hiding and trying to stay underwater and
Yeah.
trying to crawl away from the grass side as best I could.
What does that do to your body to be in the water for 2 days?
Oh, I had bamboo poisoning. I was covered in mosquito bites. I had thousands of mosquitoes bit me, and my skin was all shriveled up like prunes. Uh, yeah, they stuck me in a shower when I got back to Long Beach Hospital just to see where the wounds were and to get the mud and everything off. And I'm standing in the shower, and I realized not all the water was coming from the shower head. There were tears coming down my face.
Mm,
I was so happy to be alive.
mm. How old were you?
22.
And what month was this?
I think that was March the following year, March
March
of
69.
yeah. And my parents actually read about my rescue in the New York Daily News. It was an unusual rescue, and it made a lot of newspapers in the States.
Hmm.
And I'd been telling them that I was in a base camp and my biggest danger was sunburn by the pool. And after that, they didn't believe a thing.
Right. Um, all right. So I want to before we leave Vietnam, I do want to talk a little bit about, what your experience was coming home. But before we leave Vietnam, I, I don't know if it's just me. I'm struggling to understand. You were called military police, but your job really was not, didn't
No.
really have anything to do with law enforcement. And I don't, and I've heard this before, and I'm just trying to understand exactly what do you think listeners would be most surprised to learn about military police in Vietnam?
Well, they were virtually combat infantry, not infantry, because we were in jeeps, but they were gun jeeps. You know, they had 16 caliber machine guns mounted on a swivel in the back. Um, as an example, we got in one bad ambush, and I had a new gunner on yeah, above my head, and the machine gun sits about 3 inches above my head. And when we finally got to Benoit safely, he said, "Well, that wasn't too bad." And I said, "Look at your machine gun legs, because they're folded up. There were three bullet holes right through his leg, the legs." He took one look and fainted off the back of the Jeep.
Wow. So after your rescue, did you continue doing that kind of work? I mean, at this point, your time's getting pretty short.
I continued doing it, and I remember I got an R&R. If you survive something like that, they let you take a week off. And I went to Australia. On the way back, the 747 pilot gets on. He says, "Approaching Saigon International Airport. Temperature is 115. Humidity is 100%. Ground fires light to moderate." And I said to my buddy, "Well, we're home."
But you weren't there that much longer after that, right? Because you said you
No,
arrived in
no.
March of 68.
Yeah.
So you did that job, you just kept doing that job until it was time to go home.
Yes.
And when did you go? You went home, I guess, in it must have been that month, March of
Yeah.
69.
March or April, and no, May of
May.
that month. And I arrived in LaGuardia, and I got off the plane. I'd been decorated 8 times in Vietnam, including the Soldier's Medal, which is the non-combat Medal of Honor. And a guy comes up to me in the airport and he said, "Are you just back from Vietnam?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, welcome home. I got your girl and your job." And that was my parade.
I have your girl and your job.
Yep. People were spitting on guys in uniforms. You couldn't wear your uniform and expect a cab to stop for you. It was a really bad time.
Oh, he was saying, I misunderstood. I thought when you said he was saying your girl and
He's
your job are not available to you because I have them.
right.
Gotcha. He wasn't saying I have brought with me to deliver to you your girl and your job.
No, he
Right.
said, "I have taken your girl and your job."
That's a shitty thing to say. Why would he say that?
Because that's the way we were treated when we got home.
So when you landed at LaGuardia, what was your plan at that point? I mean, you're fairly young. You're, decorated combat veteran several times over. Um, what do you do?
Well, my dad and my uncle owned a large plywood corporation in New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut. They're the largest distributor of plywood, and they wanted me to go in and start at the top. But Dad drove an hour each way in gut-wrenching traffic. I would have to drive an hour and a half to live anywhere where I could afford. And that's 3 hours a day out of my life. And I'm not supposed to be alive. I am supposed to be dead. And so every day is precious. And I had to leave to go somewhere. The criteria was all 4 seasons, had to be in a town that was had a good corporate headquarters that I would be happy to go back to. It had to be safe and a little commute. And I was offered like 6 or 7 jobs during a job fair in New Jersey, and Dow Corning was one of the recruiters, and I accepted their job and went to Midland, Michigan. It
Mm.
met all those.
Are you a single man at this time?
I was
Hmm. So you spent how many years at Dow Corning?
31 years,
Hmm.
and then I retired from Dow Corning as the global supply chain manager for worldwide packaging.
Mm.
And then I was asked to teach at Northwood University, and I taught there for 10 years. I was chair of the marketing department there. And then when I retired from there, I concentrated on volunteer work, and I'm in 10 organizations and on 3 boards.
Hmm. Did you, during your, I mean, at any point in that long uh, line, did you get married? Did you have a family?
Yes, I married a girl that I met in Hawaii, but we didn't date for very long. But then when I was coming back, because my missing episode made a lot of papers, and I wanted to send a note to some of my friends saying that I'm okay.
Mm.
And she was leaving the island to go back to the mainland, to Kansas City, and our letters passed in the mail. So we reconnected and started long distance dating. And then I decided that we couldn't afford to do that much longer. And I loved her, so we got married.
Mm. And what's her name?
Kathy with a K.
Kathy. And are you and Kathy still together?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
54 happy years, I'm told.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you, man. So let's see. You taught at college for a while, then you focused on volunteer work, and at some point, the way that you got into being a professional Santa was from another Vietnam vet.
Well, no, Tom was not a vet.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you said
No,
that when
no,
you got
Tom
back
was
from
he was
Vietnam.
he was the head of the Santa school. Um, I do want to mention one thing, and that is when I came back, I'd been shot at almost every day I was over there. And the 1 or 2 days I had off, I didn't know those were my days off. And so getting shot at isn't fun, but it is exciting. And so I was up here. I was at the 10,000 foots, and the earth is down at zero.
Hmm.
And a lot of guys came back with the same problem. Some of them turned to drugs and alcohol. I turned to skydiving. It was the only thing that was terrifying enough that plummeting to the earth at 150 miles an hour will get your attention. And
Yeah.
at first, I had to do it 3 times a week, and then it was twice a week, then it was once a week, and then eventually weaned myself. But it was my therapy to self-help.
Were you having difficulty?
I had some PTSD problems. One day I was driving to work, and they started a radio broadcast with Mayday, 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 and they gave some grid coordinates. And at the end of it, they said, "You just heard an actual Mayday of a helicopter being shot down in Vietnam." I never heard that. As soon as I heard that Mayday, I turned my ship to go get the guy. And I drove down Patrick Road onto Saginaw Road, which is a 4-lane highway, in the wrong direction, and drove for 3 miles. And I was in Vietnam. I could hear the blades. I could smell the jungle. I could feel the heat. I was not in Midland, Michigan. And that was one of a few occasions like that that were really bad. And I kind of gutted them out. I didn't I didn't know what was happening to me. And it wasn't until in my early 60s when it hit again in force. And by then I went to the VA and I sought some help. And they really, really helped. And now I take a pill at night to help me not have the dreams. And I'm 100% normal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, as far as you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathy would argue with that every now and
Was
then.
she with you in the car when you had that? I guess what do you call that,
No,
a flashback?
that flashback, no, she wasn't. She was with me in a car in Paris when I was behind a big diesel truck, and this telephone poles were cement that were identical to the ones in Vietnam because they occupied Vietnam before we did. And at that point, I was overcome with sensory overload, and I was back in Vietnam, and I was looking for ambush points. And I couldn't see ahead of me because of the truck, but I could smell the diesel and I could see the poles. And I was out for 20 minutes. I mean, I was driving and she was pulling on my arm and hitting me, but I wasn't there. I was in Vietnam.
Hmm. And you said that once you sought help at the VA, you feel like you got good
Oh,
care, good
I got
quality care.
tremendous care, tremendous. I was in personal therapy for quite a while, and then in group sessions, and then now I'm kind of on a maintenance thing. It's still there, but it's not. It's all taken care of.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not living the nightmare. You can take the man out of the war. You can't take the war out of the man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strange thing to consider that. I mean, you were in your 60s when you finally sought that help, which seems, I don't know. It's
No,
ironic. It's ironic because a lot of the guys who came back, particularly earlier in the war, who needed help and sought it earlier than you did, found that the quality of the care wasn't what they needed. So in a way, the fact that you waited till your 60s, I mean, you kind of walked into the VA when they were probably at the top of their game in terms
they
of,
were. In fact, I was being screened for hearing, and somebody said we'd like to test you for PTSD, and then the floodgates opened.
mm. And I'm wondering, what did Kat, I mean, that's a big moment in your life. How did Kathy react to all that?
Oh, she was grateful for the help.
Mm.
She was grateful that I was, because we're guys, we tend to macho it out.
Hmm. I don't even try, but yeah, some guys do.
Yeah. And but so she was very supportive and very grateful that I went to get the help.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was with you. You guys were doing this elf thing together when somebody suggested
Yes,
that you'd make a great Santa.
exactly.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
at that point, you have to decide. I mean, it's not just, you don't just decide you're going to go become a Santa. Like there's school, there's equipment, I mean, it's a big investment of time and money
it
to make that
is.
transition from elf to Santa.
It is. And you can't just rent an outfit and put it on and become Santa because parents are entrusting their most precious possession to you. And and that is an awesome responsibility. You have to cherish it, nurture it, and give that child the best Santa experience they can ever have.
Yeah. So what's the path? What's the career path from elf to Santa?
Well, first you go to Santa school. It's a 3-day school, and you learn costuming. You need makeup. You need Santa lore, Santa history. You need to know everything about the reindeer, and because the kids will ask you all that stuff. You
Hmm.
need to learn how to handle difficult questions. I've had all of the following. Santa, can you make my mommy's cancer go away? Santa, can you find us a home? Santa, can you get daddy out of jail in time for Christmas? Santa, can you make sure Uncle Ed doesn't get in bed with me anymore? Santa, can you find Daddy a job? Santa, can you make sure my foster brother who's in a different house can be with me at Christmas? And you learn how to handle um, deaf children, blind children, autistic children, um, the special needs where they're not verbal at all. And um, it's a lot of responsibility. And and then, you have to handle the children that are on the cusp, you know.
On the
Um,
cusp?
yeah, they want to believe, but yet they don't want to believe.
Ah, on the cusp of belief. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And you have to nourish that too, because children, even if they after they learn that Santa is more of a spirit of love and giving than a real person, even after they learn that, they still believe for 3 more years.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, you mentioned Santa School. I mean, how many of those are there? How did you choose the one that you chose?
Well, the Santa school that I went to is the Charles W. Howard Santa School. It's the largest and oldest Santa school in the world. It's 85 years old, and it's located here in Midland, Michigan. Yeah, it started out in New York City.
What
A
luck?
Macy, a Macy Santa started the school, and he was convinced that there were so many bad Santas, beer breath and cigar smoke and crummy costumes. And he convinced the Bloomingdales and the Lord and Taylors he's the Macy Santa. He said, when you have a bad Santa, it reflects on your goods. People think if you have a bad Santa, you have crummy goods. And so they supported the school. And then when he retired, he went up to his farm in Albany, in New York, and continued the school up there. And it grew, from 10 to 15 to 30 people. And then when he was too old to take care of it, he entrusted it to one of his best students, who happened to be Nate Doan from Bay City, Michigan. And he took the school there. When Nate got too old, he entrusted it to Tom Valent, who lived in Midland. At the same time, we had in Midland a cardboard cutout of a Santa house, and all the foundations got together, and especially the Midland Community Foundation, and they built this beautiful Santa house out of fieldstone, and it's just a classic,
Mm,
beautiful. Google it, C.W. Howard Santa School, and you'll see the picture of that Santa house.
okay.
And it's been there ever since. We get about 300 students a year from around the world. A couple of years ago, we were invited to send some representatives to Israel to visit the only Santa in Israel, the Jerusalem Santa. And when we arrived, we were treated like heroes. The Minister of Tourism met our plane, and we had, I think, 4 buses assigned to us, and the best tour guides in Israel were assigned to us. We had Santa parades in Jerusalem and Nazareth and Bethlehem. It was, and some of us got rebaptized in the River Jordan. Some of us swam in the Dead Sea.
Mhm.
We sailed on a boat in, that Christ would have been on, um, in a fishing boat. So
Mhm.
it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Now, you mentioned some of the more difficult questions that you've gotten. How well did the C.W. Howard Santa School prepare you for some of those questions, and how did you handle those questions?
Well, for example, the can you make mommy's cancer go away? And I've had a grandmother came in and she wanted to sit with Santa, and with her whole family was there. And she came in and sat on my lap and said, Santa, I'm in hospice right now, and I'm not going to live until Christmas. You know, can you make this special for me? And so, when a child asks me that question, can I make Santa's cancer go away? I'll say, no, I only God can do that. Santa makes toys. But what I can do is let's say a prayer for your mommy right now, and I'll get out of the chair and I'll kneel down with the child. We'll say a prayer.
Mm.
And then I have a little tiny red book, and I say, remind me of your mother's name. And we write it in the book. And I'm going to put this book next to my heart. And when I go back to the North Pole, Mrs. Claus and I will pray for your mommy.
Mm. What are some of the more delightful questions that you've gotten?
Oh,
I'm sure you've gotten them all, but do any stand out?
you have some kids that are they'll come in with spreadsheets 4 pages wide saying, in the event the elves can't do this, you can get these presents at these locations. And
Wow.
then you get I had a little guy 2 years ago. He hopped on my lap. He, you know, he weighed 50 pounds, but it was like cement. He was nothing but muscle. And he goes, "Hi, Santa." And I said, "What can I get you for Christmas?" And he said, "A pair of shoes." And I said, "Well, I think I can get that. What else could I get you?" He said, "Santa, if you can just get me a pair of sneakers that don't hurt my feet, that's all I want."
Hmm.
So you have the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll have a little girl most of the time, and she's with her mother, and she's all dressed in her Sunday best, and she'll come up and she'll say, "Santa, please just give my presents to somebody that needs them." And I call those children the givers. And I always keep a couple of ornate bells in my pocket. These are made in India. They're brass, they're beautiful bells. And I'll take it out and I'll say, "Open up your hand." And then I'll put the bell in her hand and I'll cusp it closed. And I'll say, "You have to keep this secret, but you're what I call a giver." Santa loves givers. And this is Rudolph's baby bell when he was first born. But I don't have too many of them to give out. So please don't tell your friends. You can tell mommy and daddy, but this is my thank you for being a giver.
Mm. Like a little sleigh bell?
It's a little sleigh bell. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Speaking of parents, it's not just the children that Santa has to deal with, right? You
Yes.
must have some interesting stories about parents or interesting experiences.
Well, sometimes, I'm a clean bearded person, so I have a theatrical wig. It's
Mm.
a $2,200 wig set. And
You're
when it's
cl-
on,
you're clean shaven, you mean? Yeah.
I'm clean shaven. And when
Right.
I'm in the chair, I look like the Coca-Cola Santa. You can't tell the difference. You
Mm.
could stare at me from an inch away and not see that the hairs aren't growing out of my chin.
Mm.
But sometimes the parents are going, "My goodness, how long did you take to grow that? And do you shave that off?" And once I'm in uniform, I am always in character.
Mm.
I never, ever will tell an off-color joke. I'll never, ever be sarcastic or be mean to somebody. Um, the most I'll get was when a friend comes through and they know it's me, and I'll just go, "I'm so proud of your daddy getting over that bedwetting thing." That's about as raucous as I'll get. But it's important that it's your responsibility to represent the spirit of love and giving. As Charles W. Howard said, Santa doesn't enter through the chimney, he enters through the heart.
Mm. Mm. Do you ever, and this is a crazy question, right? So just forgive me in advance, but do you ever think about whether your experience as a young man in combat informed your approach to, I mean, is there anything about having experienced what you did, is there anything about that prepared you uniquely for this job, for this role?
Well, in the military, anybody that says they're not scared is lying. You're terrified. You end up praying a lot. And I think that spiritual being really helps to be a Santa because you're not taking it as a job, you're taking it as a responsibility. You're not taking it as a gig, you're taking it as an opportunity to touch somebody's life.
It's a mission.
It is. And, you know, sometimes people will, oh, you play Santa. No, I represent Santa in the spirit of love and giving.
Mm, mhm. And what about the other way around? Is there anything about your work as a Santa that is helpful in, I don't know, um, your healing?
Well, I'm part of the Midland Area Honor Guard. So we do 110 to 120 military funerals a year. And so I see the comfort and closure it gives to people, but I also see the sadness of losing a loved one. And to me, it balances the joy, the unbridled excitement, the joy, the smiles on the faces of the little children really help balance that out.
That sounds like something really important that you just hit on there.
It is to me.
I mean, the idea of, making sure that you keep joy and tragedy in balance with each other, right? Because
Right?
you can't avoid
Every now
what's
and then,
coming.
Vietnam comes back to haunt me. 2 years ago, no, about a year ago, I got a phone call from Saigon. And at that phone call, it was an Australian man. He said, "Are you Captain Fred Honerkamp? Were you commander of the 615th?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I have one of your meal cards." We had, when you run convoy and you stop in a place in the middle of the night, you don't run again at night because it's just in suicide. And so you'd have to stay overnight in some, in Long Bin or in Saigon. And it's Saigon especially, they were worried about deserters. And so the military wouldn't feed anybody unless you had a meal card. So I had to give my guys a laminated meal pass. And one of them survived. 55 years later, an Aussie in Saigon saw it in a flea market and bought it and sent it to me.
How'd that feel?
Ooh, well, just a phone call from Saigon. It felt wonderful that I was able to get it back.
Yeah, yeah.
It brought back a lot of memories.
Have you ever traveled back to Vietnam?
No, my daughter did, and one of my daughters, and she actually asked me, which I thought was quite thoughtful, whether or not I would be offended if she went. But I said no, I just can't go.
Not even as Santa?
No, I can't go.
Mm.
There's too many memories back there.
Yeah,
And why poke the bear?
right, right. You have you ever been to DC and visited the wall?
Oh yeah.
And is
I've
there,
been to
go
the
ahead.
wall a few times and I learned after the first time that I go at 3 in the morning. I want to be alone at the wall and visit some of my friends.
There are specific guys that you look for on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there
Some
anything that
college
you,
buddies that are there, and there's some guys in the military were there. And so I
yeah.
go and visit them. We have a chat.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear that a lot from veterans to go and they go in the middle of the night because they don't want to deal with the crowds and the tourists and the
I don't want
questions.
somebody taking a picture of me crying in front of a name.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Fred, what have we not covered that you think that we should about your
I
work as a Santa or your thoughts on the season or, your experience in the VA? I mean, the importance of being able to talk.
I just I find I used to I still do. I give a speech called "You've Only Just Begun,"
Mm,
and every day is a bonus for me, a life day that I shouldn't have. And so I am extremely grateful for that. And I try and encourage people to go to the VA, get the help. They're wonderful people in so many different ways, both, medically and psychologically. Um, and even if they don't have um, a medical malady right now, go and sign up for your benefits. You've earned them, and someday you may need it. And it's better to have that VA hospital card in your wallet now than later on when you really need it and you don't have it.
mm. This speech that you give, is there a recording of it anywhere that I could have access to?
Um, I can I can send you a PowerPoint of the things I talk about. And basically what I do is I give a 15-minute or 10-minute recount of being shot down and missing in action. And by the way, after I was rescued, they sent in two battalions online and they found more than 100 bunkers still intact
Mm,
after they had sent in a B-52 and an F-100 airstrike. It was just infested with bunkers.
mm,
And so I give a brief story about that. And then I come back and I say, I'm not supposed to be alive. Every day is a gift for me. And then I give a 15-question quiz of taking stock of your life exam. Um, it's just it was Dow Corning's most requested speech. I could give it every day if I wanted to, but national organizations, 3M Corporation had me fly out to their sales meetings for 3 years in a row, and Marriott sent me to Hawaii, Bahamas, Washington.
mhm.
It's a speech that I think a lot of people need to hear.
What do you, once they've completed the quiz, is there more after that, or is it just for them to take
It's
the answers home and think about them?
it's reflective.
Yeah.
It
So
causes you to
Somebody
stop
at Dow
and
Corning probably recorded one of these things, don't you think?
well, I think Dow Chemical did, but I'm not sure where it is.
Hmm. Okay. Well, that's all right. I would love it though if you would email me the questions.
I will. I will.
Seems like a good time of year for people to do some stock taking.
Yes. Yeah. The first question, as an example, is your work life, personal life, and family life in balance? And that dates back to, if you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't.
Say that again.
If you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't. Major corporations were finding a lot of their employees were dying shortly after retirement because they related so much to their work. If you are what you do, if I go down the street in Midland and say, "What are you?" I'm a chemical engineer. Well, when you retire, you're not.
Yeah, what are you
And
then?
yeah,
Hmm.
and there's that big void in your life.
Hmm.
You need balance. You need to separate your work life, your personal life, your family life, and your volunteerism. And all four of those buckets deserve to have something in them.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I look forward to looking at those questions. I mean, I'm probably going to end up reading them in the podcast, but between you and me, I'm probably also going to reflect on them
It's
privately.
a neat thing, and some people have heard the speech more than once, and when they do, they come up with a different answer in the end.
Yeah.
Uh, in other words, I say, if this is you, um, put a two down. If it's you sometimes, maybe put a one down. If it's, nah, that's not me, put a zero down.
Hmm. Talking to you reminds me of, and I can't remember the quote exactly or who said it, but I feel like it was one of the Beatles, maybe. Was it George Harrison? Somebody said, love is the only thing that the more you give away, the more you have.
That's true. That's true. And being joyful in this time of year is a great way to fight the demons.
Yeah. Yeah. And one way to experience joy is really to just serve others, right?
Right.
Like humbly to serve others.
Yeah. One of my questions is, do you have spiritual meaning in your life?
Mm,
And basically, the origin of that is that, you know, a lot of people go to church, but they are not really religious. A lot of people talk a good game, but they don't walk the walk.
mhm,
I use the example, and let's pretend you're in Midland right now, and the police department made it illegal to be a Christian. And you were at church, and they raided the church and arrested everybody. Would they have enough evidence to convict you?
right. Show me.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
There's bigotry and hatred and all in the name of religion sometimes.
Yeah. I'm curious, Fred, and it's a deeply personal question, so you can feel free to tell me to, you know, mind my own business. But was this faith of yours something that you had as a young man, or did you acquire it later in life?
I had it as a young man, and I enhanced it later in life.
Mm,
I I didn't go back career-wise. It would have been best to go back to Vietnam for a second tour, but I couldn't put my parents through that again. Um, when I came back, I was made an S3 at a battalion in New Jersey, operations officer for the battalion, and my job was to train people. And this one maneuver they wanted me to train on would get you killed in a New York minute in Vietnam.
mm,
And I went to the colonel. I said, I can't train this because this will get you killed. All these kids are going over there, and this will get you killed in a minute in Vietnam. It was akin to, you know, put on red coats and march four abreast down the road.
mm,
And he said, I know, but until the manual's changed, that's what you're going to train. And that day I said, I want to get out.
mhm,
But because by then I'd had a regular Army commission, you can't just quit. So I had to write to my congressman to get me out. He said, I've been decorated 8 times, shot up, shot down. I think I've done my part. And when a congressional letter comes back down to any unit, they have to respond within 24 hours.
mhm,
So within 24 hours, I was out processed. And I got out processed with, I think it was the Big Red One. And there were about 1,000 of us in a gymnasium. And you have to go through like 7 stations, and you're all naked. You're walking from in
what?
the, yeah, everybody's naked. They have a clipboard, and you just go from station to station getting tested by the doctors so that you can be out processed. And the station that you really dread is station 7, where you have to pee in a bottle and in a trough. And am I going to have ballpark freeze? Oh, geez, I hope I can pee on time. And this is going to be, you know, tense. So,
Because if you can't pee, you can't be out processed.
right, right. And you
Wow.
got to pee to get out. And so it's just a lot of pressure. And,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of guys can't pee at a ballpark because there's peeing into a trough with 9 people staring at you.
Right.
And so anyway, I got this running through the back of my mind. And in station 3, the sergeant goes, My God, you're a sir. I said, I beg your pardon. He said, You're a captain. I said, I know I'm a captain. He said, You can't be naked, sir. He runs off and gets a purple officer's bathrobe.
Oh, come on.
Now there are 999 naked guys and Waldo.
Right. Right.
Fortunately, Station 7 worked out okay, and I got out of there.
Yeah.
But
And the lack of a second tour doesn't seem to have hurt you career-wise. You had a pretty good career.
I did. I didn't have a good, a long military career. I had three
Right.
years, a little over 3 years,
Yeah.
but I had a very good uh, corporate. Uh, we lived in Brussels for 4 years. My first daughter was born there. We called her a Brussels sprout.
Hmm.
And then I had guest professorships in uh, Switzerland and Germany and Sri Lanka and Kuala Lumpur. And so I got to see the world.
Nice. Nice. How much longer do you think you'll do the Santa work? Do you have an exit date in mind, or are you just going to
No,
keep doing it as long as you can?
I keep doing until I physically can't
Mm.
or mentally start messing up, if I start
Mm.
forgetting things. And I'll
Yeah.
give your readers a couple tips, though, or your listeners.
Yeah.
Reindeer don't really like carrots.
No kidding.
Everybody says we're going to leave a carrot for the reindeer. Well, the reindeer love apples and raisins. And if they're starving, they'll eat a carrot, but that's about it.
Mm. You're saying for people who go to like malls or whatever, and there's an actual live reindeer as part of the exhibit, don't
Yeah,
don't give them carrots, give them
don't
apples
give them
or
a carrot.
raisins.
Give them a raisin or an apple. They'll go nuts over raisins.
Really?
Yeah.
What other tips do you have?
Well, you know, when you have somebody visiting, a Santa visiting you, keep in mind at a home visit or even at a club or an organization, don't sit him in front of the fireplace. He's wearing a wool suit.
Mm.
You'll kill him in front of a fireplace.
Mm.
Give him a nice, comfortable chair, but not one with big arms on it, because the kids can't get up in that chair then. Um, Never, if you're paying the Santa, never give him cash. Give him a Christmas card and say, please take this back to Mrs. Claus in the North Pole. We never want to, and don't try and embarrass the Santa, even if you're drunk.
Meaning put a check or cash inside the Christmas card.
Right.
Disguise it as a Christmas card.
Disguise it as a Christmas card.
Yeah.
Don't walk up and hand Santa a wad of
A
cash.
fistful of cash, right? Thanks,
Yeah.
Santa.
And, and people tend to do that.
Right. And here's a pack of smokes too for the road.
Yeah. And don't try and embarrass the Santa.
Mm.
Have fun. You know,
Mm. Hmm.
it's for
Yeah, but
most Santas, it's a vocation, not an avocation. It's
hmm
very few do it as a career. Most of us have a healthy mixture of philanthropic and then some paid gigs to help pay for the equipment.
hmm
Just my hair, I have 3 wig sets, and each wig set has to be taken to a hairdresser at least once a season at $85 a piece just to be set and combed and washed.
And how much what was the cost of each of those?
Each is $85.
No,
They each
the original cost of the wig.
$2,200 for each set. They're real hair Santa wigs that are human hairs that have been hand sewn
Oh my God.
into this theatrical wig
Incredible. $2,200 each.
each.
Yeah, and then you were telling me about the costume and the belt and the boots and like all of it, is
Yeah, the boots are $700. The belt is $100. The belt buckle is another $80. The the suits themselves are 800 to 1,000. And then I have a parade coat, a big cape. That's $1,100. So you have a fair amount of, if you want to do it well, and you can't do it well at first. I mean, Tom lent me a wig at first, and I was able to get from another Santa. Santa community is great, especially at the Santa schools. If they know you're starting off and they have an old suit, they'll send it to you.
mm,
You can use this, or you can have this. And then each year, as you get a little income, you put that reinvested in you, give it back to yourself.
mm, mm,
So next year you buy a real good Santa suit. The following year you get yourself out of your motorcycle boots into a real set of Santa boots. The next year, you get a belt and then maybe a buckle. The next year, you invest the big money into your own new wig set, and then you help out the next guy coming along.
Yeah. Yeah. And eventually you get a pocket full of European made brass sleigh bells that you can hand out
Yes.
to special kids. You know, it occurs to me, Fred, you've been doing this since you were younger than I am now.
Oh, so you can still join.
That's amazing. I hadn't thought of that. I don't think of myself as, yeah, I
You'd
have a
be
hard
a
time
great
imagining my,
you'd be a great Santa.
oh, I don't know about that.
I think you would.
I'm pretty short-tempered. It wouldn't be
Ah,
the kids that got to me. It would be the parents. It would be the
yeah.
parents that get to me. Um,
Well, Santa
which,
never loses his temper ever,
yeah,
especially in front of the children.
right, right. Yeah, that would, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be a very good Santa, but going through that experience would be good for me. Maybe I would learn to keep my temper a little better. But I'm curious, you know, you went to what is, I believe, is commonly known as the Harvard of Santa schools.
Yes.
You're in your 26th year of doing it. I mean, uh, you are the Cadillac of Santas. What advice do you have for parents whose children will see the Ford Pinto of Santas this season? Or for parents who might end up hiring somebody for a private party, say, and the Ford Pinto of Santa's shows up.
Well, they can explain that Santa is very, very busy this time of year, especially getting presents ready for all the children of the world. And sometimes helpers or Santa's cousins will chip in. And that's why you might see the Ford Pinto Santa. And if they say, is that the real Santa? And you say, well, it's the spirit of love and giving, and he has that, but he's one of Santa's cousins. Each year at the Santa School, 300 Santas from around the world come, and we go to Bronner's, the largest Christmas store in America. And when we go in, there's 300 Santas, and the kids that are in there go insane. So we all tell them there's 299 Santa helpers, but the real Santa's here too.
Mm,
And
hmm.
they run around the store trying to find the real Santa. And there's so many guys that are just, our graduates are the Macy Santa, the Rockette Santa, the Santa from the Kennedy Honors, the USO Santas, Disney World, Disneyland. Our Mrs. Clauses are also hired by Disney World, Disneyland.
You teach Mrs. Claus classes at
Oh, yeah.
Santa
Yeah.
school? Wow.
Yeah. Mrs. Claus is an important part of
Sure.
the Santa experience. I do um, a shelter house where they're abused women and children.
Hmm.
And I always bring a Mrs. Claus because those children have been abused by a man.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
frequently they'll go to Mrs. Claus first and sit on her lap.
Mm.
And then when they get comfortable, they'll come over and visit me.
Does Kathy ever do that kind of work with you?
She does.
Yeah.
She helps out at a few of the gigs. But I have another Mrs. Claus in town that helps me also.
Got it. Got it.
And the
Wow.
other the other thing is my advice to parents is trying to have a consistent Santa. Make sure your child sees the same Santa every year.
Well, how do you do that? You don't know who's going to be where. I mean, there's no way you
Well,
ex
with a little effort, you can. You can
yeah.
you can find out, is this Santa going to be back here next year? Especially when they relate well to your child and your child relates well to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have some tricks. I'll say to the child, "Boy, you've grown so much. I hardly recognize you." And they'll go, "Oh, I'm 7." I said, "I know. Last year you were 6." And they'll turn to their mother. "He's the real Santa. He knows how old I was last year." Well, the kid just told me.
Right.
They're
Right.
so innocent. And they're so joyful.
Yeah.
And then I always love to throw in, I have a complaint. What's your complaint, Santa? Well, so last year somebody ate two of my cookies. And they'll go, I bet it was my dad. I said, well, tell dad to stay away from my cookies this year. You know? Or they'll say it's their dog. Well, got to put him a little higher this year so Roscoe doesn't get him.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Um, I feel like when we were on the phone yesterday, we were on this line of conversation about how you handle challenging or difficult questions from kids. And you said something really funny, and now I can't remember what it was.
Well, sometimes they'll ask me, the children on the cusp will ask, what's my name?
That's right, the name, the
And
address
then
thing. Right, right. Yeah,
I'll
tell that story.
I'll turn to my elf and I say, we have a child doesn't know their name. And they'll go, well, I know my name, but what's my name? And I said, well, your name's Gerbish. He said, no, it's not. My name's Bobby. I said, no, that's your English name. At the North Pole, we talk elf, and your elf name is Gerbish. And they'll stop and they'll think for a minute and they say, okay, what's my address? I said, well, your address is 5708A. And they'll go, no, it's 363 Grosvenor Street. I said, no, that's your street address. We go by roof addresses, and that's 5708A. And hopefully that keeps the kid's dream alive for another year.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Good. Thank you for recounting that. I couldn't pull it up. Um, well, I think
And
we're
one
out of time.
story that brings a tear to my eye every year is sometimes we get children that are nonverbal. I had a child that was all laid out in a in a stretcher-like wheelchair. And so what I do is I get out of the chair and I kneel down next to them. I tell them all about the North Pole, all about the snow is so cold up there, it's actually blue. And I tell them about the cookies being made in the bakery and the reindeer and I tell them about the toys and you could smell the wood being prepared for on the lathes and then eventually I have to leave them. And this child grabbed my arm like a vice. And his father bent over and he said, Johnny, Santa's got to see a lot of other children. And he said, I apologize, Santa, that every day Johnny watches a Santa movie. And this is the first time a year, one time a year, that he gets to see the real Santa. So I'm right back down. I want to make sure this is the best Santa visit he's ever had. And I talked to him for another 5 minutes, but eventually I have to go because there's a lot of kids in line. And then I learned that 2 weeks later he passed away.
Mm,
So there's lots of joy, but there's also like a parish priest, there's some heartache in there too.
mm.
But the joy outweighs the heartache every day. Well, nice being with you, Michael. I wish you a Merry Christmas, and I wish the spirit of love and giving for all of your listeners.